Hi guys, let us talk about system design interviews today. Some people also call it architecture design interviews, but it's the same thing. So much has been written about coding interviews, data structure, and algorithm interviews, but I found little to no content about system design interviews online. I remember when I was preparing for my own interviews, I found no content. So I thought, let me create it. Let's understand why system design interviews are conducted. See, coding design and data structure design interviews are to get your foot into the door, to assess the ability of you having computer science knowledge or not. The system design interviews are conducted from the point of view that how good of a software engineer you are when it comes to designing a huge ecosystem of resources and putting them together to make it work as a complete application. System design interview can have huge impact on your salary. It determines the level which you will be put in and the amount of number which is being shown as a CTC in the offer letter. But unlike coding questions, system design questions are not so straightforward because there's no right answers to it. There will be many solutions to a same problem. Some solutions will be good, some solutions will be medium, some solutions will be horrible, depending upon how well they cater to the problem at hand. And it's not easy to come up with the right solution on the spot if you have not you have not prepared about it. So generally system design interviews are conducted in a way that you are given an extremely fuzzy problem and you are required to understand the problem better to figure out what the requirement means so that you can go on to the next step and design it through. The way you design it, you break down the whole problem into smaller chunks, smaller components, and you design individually and then make sure that these individual components connect together and come up with a cohesive solution. Let me explain you what I mean by all of this. Suppose your project manager comes up to you one day and tells you to create a system which stores water. So, hypothetically speaking, would you not ask your project manager that why he needs water? Does he need a small amount of water and a small bucket of water will suffice? Or does he want you to build a lake? Or does he want you to build a dam? Because all the three systems store water and all the three systems have different intended purpose. And if you want to build any one of these, you will need different kind of resources and timeline to make it. That's the brilliant example of one fuzzy problem. And you as a system designer, you will be asking all these questions and clarifying that what is the use of it. And you will figure out whether he wanted a bucket of water or a lake or a dam. Similarly, translating the same example to the software engineering world, let us take an example to put forth my point more clearly. I will try to simulate an interview and explain you what you need to do at what point of time into the interview. So I'm taking an example of designing a social media app. As an interviewer, let's say I would walk in and ask you to design a social media app. Now, as an interviewer, you need to understand that what kind of social media app I want you to design. There are so many different kind of social media apps like Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok, and whatnot. What kind of social media app I want you to design? You have to ask the questions to figure out what is exactly that thing which is in my mind. Sometimes it happens that a problem might be a little more defined. For example, instead of saying just a social media app, someone will say that, okay, design a Twitter for me or Facebook for me. In that case, more or less, you know what are the major functionalities of the platform. But still, there are hundreds of functionalities for each platform, and you need to make sure what kind of functionalities are important to the interviewer. Let's assume he wants you to design a Twitter. So you have to ask yourself that which part of functionality is more important to him. You have to ask whether being able to tweet is the only functionality he wants, or he also wants you to design the Twitter in such a way that you can see other people's tweet on your home timeline. Do you also want to see the timeline of your own tweets, or do you want to be able to message other people on the Twitter? Or you want to see the discover feature where you get to see the random content which probably you don't even follow, but it's in trending. So as you can see that there are so many things which can be designed, but your interviewer will have probably 3 4 things in his mind for you to design. You have to talk to him, you have to understand which functionalities are more important to him. Let's assume for us creating a home page which is the timeline which contains the tweets of other people whom you follow, and another timeline of the tweets which you have tweeted in the past. And third thing which I want in my app is to have a direct messaging application, or maybe you can include one more type of functionality, something like retweet. So all these functionalities, you have to talk to the interviewer and figure out that what is more important to him. I have assumed these 4 functionalities which are important to me, and I'm going to design that system which caters to these 4 functionalities. So this is first part of the problem of understanding the functional requirements. The second part comes is about a system design is understanding the non-functional requirements. The non-functional requirements are more like what is the speed you want or a user will be expecting when he opens a Twitter app. In our social media app, he wants to see all the things instantly. There should be no lag in between. You also have to ask that where is the user base currently? Is it is it spread over all over the world, or is it restricted to some particular geography? Because both the things will have implications in the way we are going to design. So these are the two major non-functional requirements I would ask you to focus more. What's the speed you are expecting, and what kind of users are going to be used, and where these users are. And another thing is that what's the expected usage. For example, a social media app can have varied level of usage. If the Twitter, probably each user might want to open it once an hour, and probably in the time of the evening there will be a huge peak time, and during the day probably it won't be much. But you have to ask absolutely that when will be the peak time, when will not be the peak time, and based on that you will be taking on decisions while you were designing, yeah, while you will design the Twitter application. Since this video has already become a long video, let's design the whole Twitter in our next video. In the meantime, I will share some of the materials which you guys can go through and prepare some questions for me to answer in the next video. See you in next part.